Okay, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel, Real Talk Recovery, where we talk about recovery from addiction and I share my life with you. My name's Nicole and I'm an addict, and my sobriety date is July 13th of 2015. But we're not going to be talking about me today. We're going to have a special guest on, the creator of Successful Convicts. He has his own YouTube channel, and we are going to have him on today to share a little bit about his story, you guys. And what I'm going to do right now before he pops on is I'm going to get the link to his channel, and I am going to share his channel in the chat. So I really want you guys to go over there and show him some love. Let's help him build his channel up. And all that good stuff. He's going to start doing live streams. He's scheduling them now, so that way you guys will know when he's going to be on. And yeah, it's going to be good. So let me get this link real fast, and then I'm going to bring him on with us. Bam, bam. Okay, I got his link in the chat for anybody that wants to subscribe. Okie dokie.
Hey, what's up?
What's up? Okay. So first of all, tell us what your name is and where you're from, and tell us a little bit about your YouTube channel.
All right, I'm Bond83. For those of you who've seen my videos already know. I started my channel because I always had the thing of making that incarceration pay for itself. Instead of just sitting back and saying, oh, they took this much out of my life or that much out of my life. I always thought about ways that I can get something from it, that I can actually, say that I got something from the incarceration. So,
Right.
Dealing with a lot of people, I'm pretty sure like you are, I'm that person that everybody come to for advice. Oh, what should I do on this? What should I do on that? So I was thinking like, and I was already doing the YouTube. I had my Bont83 channel because when I came home, I seen all these reality shows, and you can tell it's like fake reality. So I was like, well, let me start doing a YouTube. So I said, okay, well, let me do a YouTube channel, showing people that they can come out and be successful. You know what I mean? So that's my
Yeah,
name.
for sure.
Convicts. Yeah.
Okay, so what I want to do is I want to get into, you're going to be sharing like a different perspective because, over here on my channel, we have a lot of the people that come on my show are either they've just gotten out of prison and they struggled with addiction to drugs.
Right.
I've had one other person on who had a different kind of addiction, and that was Nate Dog 916. And I think you guys have a lot in common where y'all both had the same kind of deal going on. But I want to hear from your perspective. But before we get started on that part, what was it like when you were growing up? Like, what kind of childhood did you have? Did you have both your parents in your home? How was high school? That kind of thing.
Right. Okay. Now, my childhood is a little different from, the average, what society would look as, that person that's doomed to go to prison. And, I had both of my parents growing up. We moved into a house when I was 3 years old. So from the time I was, I guess, 3, I had my own room. I had 2 sisters. I had an older sister, younger sister. So by me being the only boy, I had my own room. I went to Catholic school from kindergarten to 12th grade.
Oh, wow.
Graduated from high school. I joined the Army. Actually, I joined the Army Reserves when I was a junior in high school. Then after I graduated, went off to basic training, So I was in the military. I was basically on that, what society says is the right path.
Right. I mean,
But
yeah.
at the same time, we still lived in the hood. You know what I mean? We didn't go to school in the hood because my parents luckily was real big on education. So me and my 2 sisters, we all went to Catholic school. So I don't know. It's kind of like, I tell people this all the time. It's a gift and a curse of being educated or smart or whatever you want to say. A lot of times you can analyze stuff and you can put, I always saw, like, for instance, I remember when I caught my case, I had to get a job, right? So I got a job at PetSmart. I like animals. So I said, okay, I'll get a job at PetSmart. So me seeing, like, people going to PetSmart, they buy feeder fish. If you got like piranhas, different animals, they buy the little feeder goldfish. So what I used to do is And it's just what I just always did. I would get the numbers off the side of the boxes, and I would call the fisheries and see how much, how much they cost wholesale. So I always had that like wholesale mentality.
Yeah,
So,
entrepreneur,
right,
entrepreneur.
yeah, just
Yeah,
the wrong product. So
yeah.
so growing up was like, well, it was good. I had, like I said, I had both my parents. Matter of fact, I just lost my father last December. Mother and father still was married. So I didn't come from a divorce home where I'm going, stable. It's just that allure of the street. You know, it's the same, and that's what we're gonna get into about the addiction. It's
I
just
had a similar experience. Like my mom and dad, they're still married to this day. I grew up in a we had a great childhood. There was no there was nothing that I could say this is what happened and this is the reason I turned out this way. It was just like you say, I was hanging out with a bunch of different people that were getting high. So I started getting high. They didn't make me, but it was like, you know what I'm saying? Like when you're around that lifestyle and you're kicking it with people that do that, sometimes you can get into that. And that's exactly what happened to me. I just started doing things and I liked doing it. I was
yeah,
kicking it. I was having a good time. At the time, it seemed like a great idea, but now I look back on it and I'm like, damn, I fucked up.
yeah. It sucks you in. It's a straw.
Yeah.
It's definitely like a adrenaline rush. You get fascinated by it, and then it's kind of like, I think the similarities in the personalities is the thing to be different. Although you're doing a lot of the things that everybody else is doing, the fact that you jump into it is because you don't want to be like maybe the people you're around. So you try something different, even though it's with, like-minded people, but you're doing something different from where you're coming from. And it's kind of like those different people from the different groups, they bond together doing the same dumb stuff. But it's kind of weird, but that's just how it is.
Right. Okay, so you grew up I mean, that's so crazy that you went to Catholic school because my husband, same situation. He went to Catholic school and straight laced, good parents, good job, and we both just kind of took the wrong route. So tell me, when was the first time that you started kind of venturing off the path and going to the left instead of the right?
Okay, when we first moved into our neighborhood, I grew up in Chicago.
Uh huh.
So I mean, everybody got this, oh, Chicago is like one of the worst cities now. But when we was growing up, we was like, I think we was like the third black family on the block.
Mhm.
And we went from an apartment to a house. So we moved to the east side of Chicago. And back then, me and my sister, my older sister, my younger sister wasn't born yet. We used to sit on the porch and just say hi to everybody, and that's how we got to know everybody's name. I mean, and back then you leave your bike on the lawn, it'd be there in the morning. I mean,
Right.
if you forgot to even close your front door, it was all good. And then gradually, more black people started to move in, and at the time, it was like Mexican and Polish neighborhood,
Uh
and
huh.
a lot of those people moved out. Then it's like when they moved out, more black people start moving in. A lot of Haitians start coming in, and just things just turned. And then it's like then the gang started to evolve, and
Oh.
then it was that fascination, because I remember a time where I didn't even know what gangs was. I seen a guy, he had his hat, because in Chicago it's not like in California with the colors.
Uh
It's
huh.
more of the hat is to the left or to the right. So I seen
Oh.
this guy with his hat to the he lived down the street from me, but he had an older cousin who came from another neighborhood. So of course, he wanted to start being like his cousin. So I'm like, why he got his hat turned like that? And then this guy who stayed next door to me, he was like, don't do that. That means you're in a gang. So you know how it is when you tell a kid don't do something.
Oh
So they
yeah.
just like, and that fascinated me. And then the gang started to become more and more. And then back then it's like the neighborhoods you were from, regardless if you were in that gang, you were classified as being in that gang because if you went to another neighborhood, the first thing they would ask you, where you from? And once you say
Oh.
where you from, automatically they classified you as being a member of that gang. And if you was in a different neighborhood, then you get jumped like you were in the gang. which would make you go back to the neighborhood and say, well, I'm not gonna let nobody come in my neighborhood. And
Right.
then next thing you know, you basically a part of the game because now you taking parts in the same, because you go back and you look for protection, and it's like, then it's like your neighborhood against other neighborhoods. And now I tell a lot of people like this too, uh, gang banging. Back then when I was growing up, it was certain things you couldn't do, certain things you could do. Whereas then they came with that sweep and they locked a lot of people up. So now you got all these different cliques, which you got different people from different gangs clicking together. So that's why you see such a frenzy in Chicago, because it's no more of the gang culture, it's this clique culture. And
Oh,
that's even worse because there's no structure, no, because I mean, we had rules, we used to have to, we had to know stuff. Like you have to know stuff about the gang, you have to know the prayers, it was like laws and stuff you have to follow, and but it's way different
really?
now.
Like it was kind of like a whole, so kind of like I don't want to say a club, but like did y'all have to like pay? This is so, I'm so illiterate to gangs and stuff, so I'm asking you these questions because I'm really asking. Did y'all have to like pay money and like have a, like when I think of gangs, I think of like AA or NA. I'm in an
Right,
AA gang, okay? And we have our literature and we know the traditions and we know the
right.
12 steps and we put money in the basket to support
Yeah,
the group. Is that kind of how it's like in a
yeah.
gang, only more?
I remember one gang, I won't put the names out there, but if you were under 18, you had to get permission. You had to get permission from your parent to even be there. And then, it took like, you had to go through, it's almost like a fraternity. And then
Okay.
at a certain point, it's almost like a religion too, because different gangs believe different stuff. And it's like, even to this day, being 48 years old, it's that mentality. It's like, I tell people this, it's a disease, and knowledge is the medicine. The more knowledge you have, the more medicine you have, because, you know, it may sound crazy, as much as I've been through, you still have those flare ups. You know what I mean? And it's
Oh,
like,
I know.
yeah, it's
For
flare ups.
sure.
Like, I mean, from the gangs, like, you see, like, because like I said, it's like a religion. So it's certain behaviors. And it's like when you were growing up, different behaviors your gang had conflicted with different behaviors other gangs, what they believed in. And it's
Hmm.
like you have a conflict with someone. Like I could have a conflict with somebody at work and then find out that they were a member of some gang, and then it's automatically in my head before I realize it's like, yeah, that's why I don't mess with them. And then it's like I have to think like, you know what I mean? But
Yeah, that's because you practiced that for so long. So it's
yeah,
like a part of you now. And so what you're doing now by going against that and not practicing that anymore, that's kind of like what you're not used to, because you were
right,
practicing that for so long. I mean, I think that we all, even with like addiction to drugs, it's kind of like that. Like you practice getting high for so long, and then when you get sober, it's like it's not what your brain is used to. It's almost like our brains. It's like muscle memory. You know what I mean?
right,
It's like we automatically do it.
yeah. And then
So, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, no, go ahead, go ahead.
When you okay, so you got into a gang, and how old were you when you did that?
That came about when I was like, I want to say about 12, 13. About 12,
Damn.
13. Yeah, I mean, because, like I said, it was like the gang started to become more common. So you were seeing them
Right.
at the schools, even in Catholic schools, you know what I mean? You're seeing them at the schools. And then, like I said, it's in the different neighborhoods. So it's like you just attach yourself to it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It was like when I was growing up, everybody was something. Like I said, even if you weren't like each gang, you had to go to meetings, and you had to, like I said, you used to have to know stuff. So, I mean, you had more people. You have people, some people was more active than others, you know what I mean? But I'm talking about back in the days when it was like gangs would get, people would get jumped before. I'm talking about before the shoot 'em up and bang bang, you know what I mean? This is
Uh-huh.
like when it was like, where I don't know if you know, but gangs kind of like stem from like the Black Panther era.
Right.
And
Right.
it was like, mostly groups for uniformity, even like with the Crips and the Bloods.
Mm-hmm.
Crips, it was a community organization. It was more like to keep the races protected, like back when it was like black and white, you
Right.
know. So then it evolved, and then of course it's today where it's just every race on every is the white on white, black on black, Hispanic on Hispanic, that type of crime. But yeah, and
Being
that's
12 and 13 when you were in the gang, were you like afraid, or did you feel like, oh, I'm a part of something greater than me and I feel like these are my brothers? Was it like a feeling of like camaraderie and you guys like, these people would have your back no matter what, or was it like more like competition? Like explain to me how that was.
it's, it was kind of like fun,
Uh-huh.
and then my buddy who I hung with, he was a year younger than me, but he was big. So he was like, I remember this guy used to always come up to him because, they wanted him to be in the gang. So they used to always come tell him, hey, we got a meeting and such and such, such, such. So me hanging with him, I just go with him. But it was like everybody was doing it. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's like all the kids in the neighborhood, you know, you're gonna roll with what everybody in the neighborhood is doing. And that's
Mm-hmm.
just how it was, And like I said, you had some people more active than others. Some people were just like I say, gang banging and gang
Mm-hmm.
members.
Right.
Gang bangers are the ones that's actively participating in gang culture. And then gang members, you have people who are just they're gang members. Everybody kind of like got a place. It's like if you look at the army, everybody in the army is not a foot soldier in the field shooting at the enemy. Some
Right.
people are working in the hospital, some people working in the kitchen. You got generals directing the army, all that type of stuff. And that's kind of like how gangs are. Everybody,
Okay.
got to take a place.
That
But
now I understand. Like, so there's not everybody's on the front lines. Like,
right,
okay, I get it now.
right,
So okay, like you're in the gang. You're obviously like in what, junior high, going into high school.
right.
Um,
Yeah.
how did you progress into how you ended up getting in trouble and getting time in prison?
Well, hanging in the streets, like I said, after I graduated, went to the army. I went to the Army Reserves. Let me clear that
Mm-hmm.
up for those people that's in the army. You wasn't in the real army, you in the reserve. So in the reserves, you go through basic training, you go through AIT, which is advanced individual training. Then you go home and you go to your reserve meeting. So came home, everybody was basically still in the same spots they were before I left. Uh, what I'm saying, basically doing nothing after high school. So I was trying to get a job. I was a 91 Delta, which is a surgical operating room, surgical tech, but it's operating room technician.
Uh-huh.
So try to get a job doing that. Everybody was, oh, you have an impressive resume, but you don't have any experience because I was just in the reserves. So after reserves, you go home. Whereas in the regular army, you go to, your duty and you'll do your job or whatever. So I
Mm-hmm.
didn't have no experience. I kept going interview after interview after interview. And then my buddy was like, hey, you got $400? And I'm like, yeah, why? He's like, man, you could buy a quarter ounce. So
Okay.
bought that quarter ounce cocaine, and back
Mm-hmm.
then, back then it was just powder. You broke it up and you sold powder, and we did that, and then I think we made like a couple of flips, and I remember the when we went to go recop, we had sold it all. We went to recop that $400. We had 390. So I'm like, okay. So I took $10 more out the bank. We bought another one. Then we had like 375, and I'm like, I thought you were supposed to make money selling drugs, not, what I'm saying, use
Not
money.
break even or
Right.
barely break.
So I hooked up
Yeah.
with this other guy, and he was like, man, you messing with him because he's spending all the money. And then, like, when I started messing with him, it just took off. And it was like, you know, at that time, I was what, 19, 18, 19. I always had $1,000 in my pocket. So it was like, like, wow, then we just start, you progress. And then I can't really remember what year it was when before, the big crack era, they called it
Uh-huh.
Ready Rock because it was already rocked up. So that's why they call Ready Rocks. So this one guy, he came, I don't know where he got it from, but he started serving Ready Rocks. So then, after a while, all the people, because back then people used to buy the powder cocaine and they would cook it up in the little tube. And then they would tell you, oh, this didn't come back right and all that type of stuff. And
Right.
that's when the chemistry part of it come in. You start learning different ways to cook it up and make it expand. And I mean, it's just like a whole lifestyle that you get into. You know what I mean? It's like,
Oh, I know what you mean.
right, yeah, yeah, and
I've
that's
cooked some
that's what
crack in my
I'm saying.
day.
So like as we were talking before, the dealers go hand in hand with the people who use. You can't, like, of course you can't have one without the other, but both are addicted. And a lot of times they don't even know, because this is what I saw with a lot of dealers. Like, for instance, a lot of people who sold cocaine use heroin, just like a lot of people who sold heroin use cocaine. And they
Mm-hmm.
were just like really highly addicted, but didn't even know it because they could afford their habits. Like, I
Right.
remember back in the days, I want to say like late 80s, early 90s, it wasn't a lot of people that had raw heroin habits. You know what I mean? A lot of people, like, they couldn't even take raw heroin. They would have to cut it. Otherwise, they would OD because it was so
Right.
strong back then. And most of those guys who had the raw habits were dealers. They either sold heroin and used it, they sold cocaine and used heroin, or sold weed or whatever. They sold something and used something else.
Mm-hmm.
But with the influx of money, you don't even realize, that the people that you looking down on, all the junkies and all that, you might be using even more than them.
Did
Yet
you
you
ever
don't know it.
use did you
With
ever
me,
use drugs or did
let
you
me tell
just
you this
sell them?
real story, and I know you might look at me like that's crazy.
What?
My buddy, right? His
Uh-huh.
brother-in-law was like real, real big time. So we used to watch them and try to emulate them. And this was back when I think I was selling like dollar joints. We were selling dollar marijuana joints. But anyway, so they were selling cocaine. They were selling lots of cocaine. They had like the fur coats, the new cars and stuff like that. So he had went out of town. So we had these girls over and we trying to act like, we big time drug dealers and stuff like that. So he brings out a salsa, because back then, like I told you, it's like an addictive culture where people use some type of drug. It's kind of like almost cool or whatever.
I
So
know. Yeah.
yeah, so he brings the salsa out with baking soda on it, and we acting like we sniffing cocaine, trying to show off the deal. Right. So look, now this is crazy, and I tell people this, and they say that's crazy, but so we did that. This was like the whole weekend. So it's like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We bringing different girls over there. So like for a week straight, I'm coming home from school, running to the refrigerator to sniff some baking soda like I'm hooked on it. Right. I did it, and it used to burn. I did this for like, I'm on to say like 3 or 4 days. And then I just thought to myself, like, you can't be hooked on baking soda. And I never did it again, but that was like a stupid, that was a stupid phase. That was crazy. Like, I was really sniffing baking soda and like on the bus, like on my way home, like, man, I gotta get home. I need some baking soda. Like,
You were young though, so it
I
so
was
it
gonna have to, but
you
still,
know
I
what I
was
mean?
like, that was crazy.
I've been
That's
there. Like I was sniffing real cocaine though, and
right.
when you start when you do cocaine, this is my experience because I used to have a guy. We called him Booby, and he was my coke dealer, and I could call him anytime, day or night. I could go to his house and just like sit in his apartment while he was making crack, and I could do cocaine all day long, and he wouldn't bother me, as long as I gave him the money that I had or did whatever I needed to do. He was gonna give me my cocaine, and he
Right.
kept me happy all the time. And with cocaine, especially when you start smoking it or injecting it, it's like the most intense high that I have ever experienced, except for methamphetamine. They're both they're neck and neck. Methamphetamine just lasts like days, and cocaine is
Right.
like intense. It's so intense all at one time, but short lasting. So you're constantly chasing that next hit constantly. That's why, like when you're serving people that are addicted to cocaine, they're coming back, they're coming back, they're coming back. I mean, they're
Right.
taking their flip flops off. I'll sell you my flip flop. I mean, I have taken wedding rings off that my husband. I remember I was real bad off, and we were both bad off. And he had bought me this diamond ring. It was a blue diamond. It was gorgeous. And I remember walking up to this lady and giving it to her for $50 worth of cocaine. And I was like, I remember that I never saw that ring again. And we still talk about it to this day because it's like I would never do that now. I love my jewelry. I love everything I have worked so hard for. But when you're in the grips of drug addiction and cocaine, man, I'm telling you, crack cocaine is the devil. I would sell anything that was not bolted down to the ground,
Yeah.
anything. And if I couldn't find anything here, I would go other places to find stuff. Lord help me, Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay, so when did you
That,
get into like the big time, and like when did you get into selling cocaine, and then like were you making a lot of money, or were you just breaking even, or how did everything go down?
well, in Chicago, it's like a lot of people, and let me see. I want to say that was early 90s. It was just like once the Ready Rock came, or what they call the crack rock,
Right.
everybody was on it. It was like me and my buddy, we had started back when it was still the powder packs. But then once the Ready Rocks came and we switched over to selling the hard,
Mm-hmm.
everybody got on it. It was kids that used to cut hair, we used to give them a couple of dollars. Now they was on the corner selling rocks, and the kids that used to push the lawnmower and try to hustle and do this type of stuff, they were selling rocks. So everybody was selling rocks. And then it was like a whole culture. And I don't know, because this was the only place I was, but like in the hoods, in the urban areas, the ghettos as they call it, it's almost like everything is set up for it. Like it's almost you got like I would call it a failure package. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? It's like either you're gonna use drugs or sell drugs, but it's like almost everything is like bottled up and packaged for that area, because even like the Jordans was real popular, and of course, on a regular salary, you couldn't afford Jordans.
Right.
Jordans always came out in Chicago, I know for sure, in two colors. It came out in the red and black, and they came out in the blue and black, which were the two predominant gang colors. And they always catered to that. They always came out. They came out around the times that the welfare checks came out, which when the welfare checks came out, that's when the crack dealing was at its height. Because
Right.
people would come and they would give me their cards. Here, you can hold my card. I get my check on such 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 such, and it was just like everything was just built up for it. You know what I mean? And it's like once you got sucked into that whole lifestyle, it's like it wasn't no escaping. So, like I said, everybody was doing it. So it wasn't like a big climb. It was more so. Uh, I mean, you had some people who staved off and they saved their money and they got to the next level. And I guess I was at a comfortable position where I was making money. I could have been making a lot more, but I mean, you only can do what you know. So I didn't really have a whole lot of budgeting skills. You know what I mean? So making the money, I was making a decent amount. I was like, I want to say like, I guess I can say like a mid-level dealer, not a
Yeah.
high-level dealer, not a low-level dealer, but a mid-level dealer. And was doing that and doing that, and then I wound up getting messed up. What happened? I bought a bad batch, so to speak, and then like I said, it goes hand in hand with the gangs and all that type of stuff. So the guy I bought it from, he was like a high-ranking member.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went back to him, and then I went through somebody, it was just a bad deal. I got a bad batch,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like took me down because it didn't what it about cooking cocaine.
Right. You couldn't get off of it. People
It
weren't
didn't
wanting it.
it didn't come back. So it was like it disappeared basically. You know what I mean? Which
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It wasn't just bad work. It just didn't come back. So it was like over half of what I was supposed to get. So, went through that, and but because I didn't necessarily get it directly from him, he was just like, what you want me to do about it? And
Right.
then, like I said, with the gang stuff, you hear about these drug deals going bad, but it's like him being a high ranking member is like, what am I gonna do? You know what I mean? Am I gonna do
Right.
something to him? And then it's politics involved in that. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
okay, I could have went and handle my business, do what you normally would do to somebody who play you or whatever. But one, I didn't get it directly from him. It was a person in the middle that went to
Uh-huh.
him and got it from me. Two, okay, let's say I'll do something to him, and then when I go to, like, if you go to the county jail for doing that, you got to deal with them politics because ain't no escaping once you get to the county jail. You know what I mean? And like I said,
Right.
he was a high ranking member, so it was just like, I just had to chalk it up. So I wound up after that, was struggling. I had a son at that time. I had a daughter on the way, and we was living in this apartment, and it was like, man, money was tight. I had to go down in what I was normally getting. Uh, Came up, my buddy was like, man, he had kept telling me to come to Minnesota. Man, come
Mm-hmm.
to Minnesota, come to Minnesota. So when I was at that time when I left, I think I had $800. Oh no, before that, let me say, before I did that, I was messing with this guy who I thought he was cool, but he played me. He played me out some money. It's kind of like that old saying that you can't trust nobody. So now he would always, if the people who he used to mess with, if he couldn't get nothing, he would always come to me. He'd give me his money, and then I'd go shop with my people.
Uh-huh.
So when I went to do that with him, he played me out my money, which broke me down. And at the time I didn't even know. I didn't find out to almost like, I want to say years later that he played me because I always had that trust because I'm like, well, he give me his money all the time. Why would he lie? Even though the story was kind of crazy, crazy things happen. You know what I mean?
Right.
Long story short, he said the police beat him up, took the money, dropped him off, told him to get out of there, which is that's not unnormal because police in Chicago, especially back then, they get paid a lot more now, but back then, it wasn't strange to get robbed by the police, even get
Right.
caught with a lot of drugs or a lot of money, and they just take it and tell you to get out of there, and
Right.
it's like, hey, do I want to go to jail for this or am I going to just chalk it up? But anyway, so that's what led me because I only had like $800 left, enough to get an ounce. And I'm like, man, I'm hurting. So came to Minnesota. I paid the rent. The rent was like 800. And I came to Minnesota. I think I had $40 to my name. So I got with my guy and it's just like boom, Minnesota was like compared to Chicago, it's almost like a small town compared to the big town. So, I
Uh-huh.
came up here with my Chicago attitude and my buddy, he was pretty good up here. So he was like, man, whatever you want. So I played it, played it smooth the first couple of months, just looking around, finding out the time. Then it was so cold here. I think it was like the wind chill factor was like 60 below when I first got here. So I'm like, damn, it's cold. It's way colder in Chicago. So
Damn.
I kept like pinching off that $40 till I got down to, I think, because I was staying with my auntie lived up here. So I got down to like $18. And I said, forget this. Jumped in the game. I found a guy, because I kept telling people like, man, find me somebody who house I can serve out of. And I found a guy, and I think that first night I made like $1,500. And I'm like, damn. I'm like, these people don't know me. You know what I'm saying? They don't know if I got fake drugs, real drugs, or whatever. I made 1,500. I was like, I ain't never going back to Chicago. And then I'm surprised all that time that because I used to go to MoneyGram. I was going to MoneyGram and I was sending my kid's mother at the time because, like I said, my daughter was on the way. So I was sending her money every day. Every day I'm making money and I'm sending it through MoneyGram every day. And when I got to the Fair joint, I found out, man, you can get a case just on that. But wish I would have caught a case doing that. But
Because they can track that money that you're not claiming taxes on, right?
with just the amounts that you sending, I'm literally maybe a space of one day in between, but I'm sending hundreds of dollars every day just so she can pay the rent, the gas, driving around, all that type of stuff. Then
Well, at least you were taking care of her and the kids. I mean, that's a lot more than a lot of dudes would do, you know?
man, that's a whole nother story. But yeah, yeah, yeah. So I mean, and that builds up that addiction. You see what I'm saying? So it's like just like a person who's getting high, they got to go out and get high every day. That's the same way I had to go out and sell some and make some money every day. Because like if I sat in a house and I didn't go and I didn't sell no drugs, or during the drought times when it wasn't no drugs, man, you just be in a house and you just be like sick. Like, man,
Having anxiety,
yeah,
worrying that you're
like
not going to
man,
be able to make ends meet for the next day. I can
yeah,
understand because
yeah,
addiction, like I was telling you on Instagram the other day, it's like a lot of people think and they think of addiction as just drugs and alcohol, but it's really behaviors that, it can be anything from gambling, selling drugs, like I was saying, pornography,
right,
um, all these different things. And even in that lifestyle, it's like the rush of being able to have power and control too,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
because people give you that control. It's almost like, and it's levels because even as a drug user, you're giving up power and yet you're getting power because to the dealers you have power because even though a lot of dealers or some dealers or whatever don't respect the drug user, at the same time subliminally they do, because it used to be fights over, people will pull up and then if it's a good customer, that customer that always spend, because you got different levels of drug dealing just like you got different levels of drug users. You had the drug users that was scraping to get high, and then you had those ones that had jobs, and when they came correct, like with the crispy $100 bills, and like when those people pull up, guys will be like, "Oh, I got him! No, I got him! No, no, he coming to me! He coming to me!" And sometimes they be
Oh,
like,
I know.
yeah, they be
There was
like,
a
"Whoa, whoa,
time
I want to mess with you," and be all happy and stuff like that. But yeah, it's like you said, it's power,
There was a
and
time where I would literally, I always got from the same guy. I never went to anybody else. He was my dude ever since I moved to Little Rock. And I would literally sign my check over every Thursday to him. My check from 2 weeks worth of working because
right,
he knew I had a job and I was like, listen, man, I ain't got no money, but I get paid on Thursday. When you just come up and pick me up from work, and I'll sign my check over to you. We go to the bank and cash it, or put it in your account. And so he would front me everything I needed for the next two
right.
weeks, and then on Thursday he'd show up and pick me up. You
And
know,
then you probably was paying them double from
and
what you
I would
really.
never go anywhere. Like he knew he could come there, and I was going to be there. And I'm gonna tell you something. I paid that fool's rent. I paid
Right.
that fool's car payment. I paid for his babies to have brand new shoes and Pampers. Like it was, yeah, I know. And that's like, we needed you just as much as you needed us. It's like a
Right.
trade. You know what I'm saying?
And that's what I was saying earlier about that. It's like a package. You got, the whole package is in that neighborhood. You got the users, you got the dealers, you got the gangs and all that. And it's like you never really even go nowhere. You go in that same little circle. You're not like going on vacations. You're not like going out. And it's like, it's almost like it's set up a certain way to be a certain way.
Right. It's a trap.
Yeah, definitely a trap. And
And if
like I
you don't
said,
get out of that neighborhood or get out of that lifestyle and get you and your family, it's sad because the way things are set up is it's for people that have money to succeed. And
yeah,
so in a lot of these areas, like in the hood and in the urban areas, I mean, even with Mexicans, even with white folks in the trailer park, like people who are living under, they're poor. Okay,
yeah,
they don't got no money. Their parents are working their asses off. Like my parents were middle class, working their asses off just to make sure I could have braces for my teeth or a new
right.
pair of shoes. And so it was always like a struggle. So for people like us who actually had to work and do all those things, it's like, if my dad always used to say the saying, and he would tell you, money goes to money. People who have money get money, and it's like the whole world is set up for it that way, even with insurance, with jobs, with anything. And so it's hard whenever you've been to prison, or you've gotten, or you used to be addicted to drugs, or addicted to selling drugs, or anything like that, that sets you back from being able to get good employment. It's harder to be able to succeed. So that's why whenever we can get out and like change our lives and get good jobs, we have to help other people and teach them how to do it too. You know what I mean?
Right. And see, that's where I slightly disagree. It's not hard. It's the mentality. It's the
Mm-hmm.
mentality that is hard. Because if you know better, you always can do better. You see what I'm
True, true.
saying?
Yeah.
So it's like I've seen a lot of people who were addicted to anything, whether it be drugs or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like being a dealer. You have to change what you're addicted to. You have to change what you're dealing. You see what I'm saying? Because you're gonna always have to hustle. You
Yeah.
just gotta change your products. And you always gonna have some sort of addiction. You just gotta change what it is. You
You
know, like
know,
for
I,
instance,
it, I think what happens is a lot of people don't. I know for me that I was able to change and turn my life around, but it was, I had to have somebody else to kind of help me and show me, because I
right,
didn't have, like, I didn't know how to make a change. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was so, I spent that life for a long, long time, like 12 years of just getting high and fucking up my life. And so when I finally got into somewhere where I could change, even then it's like I wanted to change, but it was, I had to have this like spiritual awakening, almost like something
right,
inside of me to realize that I, man, it's just, I sometimes I think that some people, they don't have the capacity to make changes because they've never been taught any different. Do you understand what I'm
right.
saying?
That's what I said. You have to know better. Just
Right.
like the getting high part is easy. Just like the selling drug part is easy because that's the part you know. And it's easy. And it's not so much, it is easy because it's available, it's easy to get, it's available, but at the same time, you know it's available because you know the workings of it. You see what I'm saying? Just
Yeah.
like being an entrepreneur or getting a job. Now that you left that side alone and you jumped on this side, wouldn't you say that's kind of easy to get a job?
Oh yeah. Now that I know
Yeah,
what I'm
you see
doing.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now, yeah. Sometimes when I say things, I think that they don't come out the way I'm thinking them. You know what I mean?
right. And that was my whole point for the successful convicts because a lot of times people come out to the unknown and you don't really get a lot of help from people like me or you. You getting help from people that's always been on the other side.
Right.
So they giving you, like for instance, coming out of the fair joint, if I see somebody, I always tell them, as far as when it says, have you been convicted? And I just put no, because my thing is, it's up to the employer to do his research. Other than that, if he don't know, then you just act like you haven't, and he won't treat you no different. Because a lot of times, it comes to the point where they find out, and like I had one guy tell me, I kind of knew you was locked up because how big your arms are. Like nobody knew, you know what I mean? But other
Yeah.
than that, like your demeanor and stuff like that, it's on you to tell that part. And it really shouldn't be like, okay, I've been locked up. That disqualifies me just solely because of that for a job. Whereas this person who is a terrible employee, but he gets the job because he's never been to prison, and but we can offer those shortcuts where somebody else couldn't. But when it comes
Sorry.
back to it, it's all about what you know. And man, you just gotta find a new addiction.
I have not, like, this is what I have to do because I have a felony. You know, I went to prison. It was behind simple possession. I was getting high and had drugs in my car, but um, I would put my felony on my on there, and then people wouldn't even give me a chance. So
Right.
I stopped saying yes, and I waited until I got to be face to face with the person, and they could see like that I've changed what I'm doing now, all these different things, and then like I've had so many people go to bat for me and go and override my felonies. Like I worked for a big grocery store, Kroger, And they were the first people to ever give me a chance and say, you know what, we know she has a felony, but we're going to send her through anyway. And I ended up becoming an assistant manager and going all over the United States, opening up new Krogers with them because I was a bomb ass worker, you know?
I was just about to get to that. This is one thing I like to push, and I don't know if you push this or not, but people in the drug game, period, dealers and users, are some of the most creative, business-like people. Because just think about it, the times when you didn't have drugs, the creative ways you came up, and this is not just you personally, but anybody listening, the ways you come up with ways to get drugs from a dealer with no money.
Yeah.
Just imagine if you use that same mentality for this no money down real estate. You know what I mean? Because it's the same thing. You're just dealing with a person and you trying to work your magic, or like we say, use your mouthpiece to get what you want. You know what I mean? And it's the same thing. Like you said, you would say, hey, I got a job. I'm going to sign my check over. What's to say you go to somebody and you try to get a two flat or a duplex or a quad apartment building with the same mentality. Hey, I'm good for it, blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? But we don't try. We don't think of that. You see what I'm saying? We think like, oh, I just use that. But if you look at a lot of, especially like in rap music, you look at a lot of the people that's real huge in the rap game, Master P, Puff Daddy, Jay-Z, they all came from the drug world.
Yeah.
They got those business tactics from dealing in the drug world, the streets. Because those really, it's just like me working a job. I've noticed, I was talking to another coworker, and I look at some of the things some of the coworkers do. Like for instance, when I'm at work, I mind my business. I don't really get caught up into what nobody else doing. I don't care about what somebody else getting paid and all that type of stuff. But it goes with that street mentality because, getting in other people's business could get you hurt or get you killed. You know what I
Right.
mean? Worrying about somebody else stuff really does nothing for you. I can't count what your check gonna be. It's not gonna pay my bills. You know what I mean?
Right.
Going to the boss, telling on you could get my head cracked in the parking lot. This is just my mentality. So it keeps me, and every job I've had, the employers like, I like him. I like his personality and stuff like that because it's a lot of things that I try not to worry about and put myself in. But that goes back to saying it's even been studies to show that we make better employees because we know what it is and we know what it takes. You know what I mean? And then a lot of times too, the stipulations we under. Like for instance, you're on parole or whatever, supervised release, you don't got chances to mess up.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're not gonna come to work high because you're taking UAs. You're not going to steal because you're not trying to go back to prison for this petty money that's in the cash register. You know what I mean?
Right.
Whereas you got that person who never had those type of circumstances, they more of a liability. They come to work high, because they don't have no UAs to take. They likely to steal because, hey, it looks like it's there for the taking. They don't know the consequences behind it. And
Right.
once
Right.
again, that's what it's all about, man. You just gotta flip. I believe you just gotta flip that switch and to put that same, because you don't necessarily have to change that mentality because like I said, people say it all the time, man, don't let a crackhead out hustle you. You know what I mean? Because man, I've seen some people come up with some. I mean, I knew a dude that could take the stickers off the window of a car because like in Illinois, you gotta have a stick on the window and a stick on the license
Oh
plate.
shit.
And you go to pull it, it'll say void.
Are
But
you
he
there?
knew how to take it off where it would still stick. I mean, just coming up with all kind of ingenious ways to make money just to get high. So imagine if you use that to make a living. You froze up. Now, how did I become the focus and she cut off? But yeah, the recovery is real. You got to recover from your old mindset and switch it over to the new mindset. And to make the easier transition, it's a lot easier if you take. Oh, there you go. I'm
Sorry
like,
about that.
how did I leave your show? I mean, how did you leave your show?
Dude, that happens sometimes. It's like all of a sudden it'll just kick me off, and I pay money to have this thing. I'm like, what the
Right.
hell?
Yeah. Yeah, but I was just telling your viewers, like, the recovery is real, and you got to change not necessarily everything you do, but just the way you do it. You got to use that same mentality, but use it a different way. It's almost like
Right.
a superhero. You got this superpower. You can use it for good or you can use it for evil. And you just got to figure
Yeah.
out the way. Because another thing, too, you can make a job, you can make a hustle.
Oh, for sure. Like
Yeah.
just starting a YouTube channel. I started my YouTube channel 2 years ago, and I never in a million years thought that I would get a job because of my YouTube channel. But
Oh,
I'm going to
really?
tell you something right now. Like, I have been so blessed. I get to work with amazing people who help addicts get sober, and I was like, nobody will ever want to have me on their team to do something like that. And I just, but that was me talking down on myself. What I did is
Right.
I stayed doing the right thing. I stayed sharing my message of what I believe is, helping people and staying sober. And somebody was watching me and I didn't even know it. You know what I mean? And that's what happens. It's like people will be watching you, and they could be people who, they've never done time or been in prison, but they've got their life set up and they're like, I want to take a chance on this guy.
Right.
He has, and that's what happened for me. Somebody took a chance on me, man. And I thank God every single day that because it's my passion helping people. I would do it for free.
Yeah.
I was doing it for free for 2 years, and now I get to be able to do it and actually get paid to do it. And
Yeah.
so, man,
You're
I'm
the
telling you
perfect
what,
candidate.
I thank God every single day that my son was born and that I got sober so that way I could do that to help other people.
Let me ask you this. Do you like to this day, do you still like have that want or the desire or even the thoughts about getting high?
Well, every now and then it'll pop into my mind about like certain drugs like Xanax or something like that. Like if I'm stressed out, it'll just be a fleeting thought. But the obsession to use like that, like overwhelming, I have to go out and do it. No, like I don't want to lose. I don't want to go out and get high. I don't want to throw away my life. I
Right.
actually love myself today. You know what I'm saying? I value my son. I value myself. I value my husband. When I was using drugs, I didn't value me,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's even like probably what it was like for you when you were selling. It's like we might say, "Oh, I was making this money, I was doing that and this and the third," but you were putting yourself in harm's way. You know what I mean? Like you weren't
Yeah.
it's not caring about yourself. It's not loving yourself. It's like fast cash. It's like that lifestyle. It's the addiction of being able to have money, power and respect. And it's like the way you get respect is by working hard, being honest, taking care of your family, doing the right thing. You know what I mean? That's the kind of respect that I want?
And not only that, that money, I mean, you could do a lot of things with money, but for the most part, it just gets spent in that circle. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? It's like I couldn't do nothing real with it. I was at a point where I had kind of like real money, but it was useless. I could buy cars, I could buy clothes, and I can have fun and all that, but I couldn't buy property because it's like where you gonna show the money coming from. You
Right.
know what I mean? Well, I mean now, it's ways that you can do it, but for the most part, it's just in that revolving circle. You know what I mean? And it's like now you see credit is king. You know what I mean? I didn't straighten out my credit, and then it's like you go to prison, you watching TV, you see all the things that you could have done. And that's one of the beauties about going to prison too, because it opens your eyes. You get to see different other people's struggles and you get to learn different things. And like I said, you basically you kind of like got to replace that addiction. Like I would assume that you replace your addiction with your family and giving back.
Oh, for sure. I'm
Yeah,
addicted to you. I tell people, and I know it's crazy, but I'm addicted to YouTube and helping people
yeah,
online. It's like that's where I put all of my efforts are into helping other people come out of where they're at, and if they're struggling, and it. I'd rather be addicted to that or be addicted to like being with my son and my husband, than to be addicted to drugs any day.
right.
But
And then it's
you
almost
couldn't
like
tell me that back
the
then. Back then,
drugs,
I was like, I need these
right,
drugs. I gotta have them.
right. And it's almost like the drugs put you on pause from helping somebody else. Like if I was to get back into selling. I mean, it's so much involved with selling drugs too. People don't even realize. Like I tell my I got a little cousins who looked at, my lifestyle. Oh, you was doing this, you was doing that, and you never know who. Like you said, you never know who's watching. So they looked at it like it was fascinating, but like I always tell them, what about the non-fascinating? What about when and now with this online thing, it's so easy to get some money to flash and stuff like that. And like I used to do it, and I used to tell people when I do it, I would like right before I go to pay my mortgage, I would sit in the car and I'd take pictures and I'd flash the money,
Uh-huh.
but then I flash the receipt that I just gave it to the bank for my mortgage. You know what I mean? And it's like
Yeah.
now, like I got a stack of $100 bills in there now that came from China. They're not real, but they look real and they look good on video. You know what I mean? But
Really?
yeah,
What?
yeah, yeah. But it's prop money, and they got it's so much fakery now. You know what I mean? Even down to even the drugs. The drugs are fake. You know what I mean? It's like the game has just changed, and it's like, man, if you out there and you listening and you getting high and you need help, man, contact Nicole. If
Oh,
you
thanks,
want
man.
to contact me. But man, you just got to reverse what you're getting high on and reverse it, and you're in a better position than people that you think are looking down on you. Because for real, a lot of people don't have that passion and desire that you have. Like when you getting high, or when you out there and you on the grind and you doing something that's wrong, that's probably gonna cost you your life. It's a lot of people that just probably wish they had. Maybe not because you're getting high or because you're doing something wrong, but they wish they had your drive and your ambition. Because it takes a lot to get up and those drugs pushing you to go do something stupid so you can get some more drugs in your body. Man, if you can replace that with something good, like for instance, a hustle, making t-shirts, selling t-shirts. What I tell a lot of the homeless people I see, out here on these corners, like, okay, you got your cardboard sign and stuff like that. You post it out here all day, but what am I getting for my money? And they really, I think they don't like when they see me coming.
Do a service for somebody. Go wash
Sell
their
water.
car. I
Sell
mean,
water.
shine their tires for them. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Especially now, coronavirus, man, you know how much water you can sell? Like, for instance, you can go to the dollar store. Let's say you go out there, right? And this is for anybody that's out there and they, in a bad position or whatever. You go out there, your first $10 is your investment. Go buy you a little styrofoam cooler. I don't know about wherever you at, but I know here you can get a 8-pound bag of ice at Wendy's for 99 cents.
mm-hmm.
Put you some waters in there. I swear, like me, I don't really give money to people because there's too many things out here that you can do for money. So I look at begging as like I can't so because I'm working a square job now. I'm working and every penny I get is accounted for the work I did. So I
Right.
can't just give people money. But I would give you $1 for a bottle of water that I wouldn't even drink before I gave you 50 cents just for nothing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Because people would support your habit. I mean,
Right.
not your habit, your hustle. Sorry.
I
People
know
would
what you
support
mean.
your hustle.
There's
They
a
would
saying
support
that this
your hustle.
counselor, I used to know this counselor, she would say, if you would just if you would put as much effort as you put into going out there and getting dope, if you would put that much effort into your recovery, then there's no way that you won't stay sober. You know what I
Right.
mean? Because I'm telling you, I would walk a mile in a blizzard with no shoes on to go get dope.
Yeah.
I would walk across hot coals.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen some crazy stuff too that people did
You
to
wouldn't
get
want
high.
me to look at me. You wouldn't want me because towards the end of my addiction, I'd be sitting on your front porch waking you up at 6 a.m. And
But
the dude I used to get dope from, he would be so mad because I wouldn't care if he didn't answer the phone. I'm driving over there.
right. See, I wasn't really. I don't think I was too like disrespectful or mistreating of people because you know I don't know. That just wasn't in me. I've
Right.
seen some people do some bad stuff though. People they really take a person's addiction and drag a person through the dirt. I mean,
Yeah.
some horror stories like women with dogs. I seen a dude lift the engine block. Uh, Man, just crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And
I've also seen some bad stuff. Like, all I know is that God protected me because I always seemed to link up with people who they were good
wouldn't use
people.
it.
They were good people in their heart. They were
Right,
just like, I mean, to this day, I think about the guy that I used to cop dope from because he was a good dude. You know what I mean? Like, I knew him for 10 years. And he wasn't a bad person. He was he was not a bad person. He was a good guy. He just didn't know any other way to survive. He had
right,
been to prison. He had like 4 kids. He had a baby mama. He had bills to pay. He could not get a job. Like, I tried to get him a job at Kroger with me. I tried to get him a job at McDonald's. Like, nobody would hire this dude because of these felonies. And so of course, like, he did what he knew how to do to make fast money for his family. And so I see how people can get caught up in that cycle. It's so easy to it can happen to anybody, you know?
yeah, yeah. But one thing for sure, you gonna hear way more no's than you hear yes. So, I mean, I don't know the guy, but I personally would say that he kind of didn't push as hard as he could have because even with felonies, he could have got a job.
Right, right.
Eventually, he keep asking, he keep looking, he was gonna find one. Or, he kept dealing, so he could have created a job. I mean, it really, I'm just keeping it real. It ain't no excuse. It really ain't.
When you sell drugs, like, I imagine that you could, like, because there's this guy I was watching. I don't know if you watched Lockdown 23 and 1 with
Yeah,
Deb. Okay, he had this guy on who is a salesman, and he calls people up and I don't know what he does, but he makes millions of dollars doing it. He's a salesman. He sells things for big companies, and what he does is he talks to people all day long and talks them into investing in their whatever they're selling. And this guy's like a millionaire now, and so people that have been to prison, convicts, are some like salesmen. We could sell, what is it? Sell ice to a Eskimo in an igloo. You know?
yeah, yeah. And like I
So
said, it's really not an excuse. It's a big thing with want. You know what I mean? You gotta want it.
want
You gotta
better.
want it as bad as you say you want it. Because I mean, I know people that used to be, what we call crackheads,
Mm-hmm.
and they just do a complete 180 and they like the opposite. Like I knew this one guy, he used to get high and then he turned into a dealer. And it was like a big dealer. Another guy I know, he blew up when I came home. I seen him on Facebook in front of a Mercedes. He done moved to another state. He got a painting company. He doing real well. You know what I'm saying? So it can be done, and it don't even have to be done to. That's a big misconception people have. Uh, like because I've been like trying to get people to do interviews, people I know that was locked up, and a lot of people tell me, "Oh, well, I'm not successful," and I'd be like, "You're successful because I'm talking to you." You know what I mean? If you're not in prison, you're successful. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? And
Yeah.
people don't understand that too. Just like with using drugs, every day you don't use drugs, or every minute you don't use drugs, you're on the path to recovery.
Right.
All you got to do is just keep going. Even if, you don't use drugs today, you've been getting high all week, and you didn't use drugs today, and you plan on using it in the next hour, and you waiting on some money to come or whatever, you still on that path to recovery. It's up to you to break it, because recovery starts from the time, I would assume, that you're not high, or the time you're not using. On there, it's on you. How long you gonna be on that road to recovery? You know,
Right,
it's up to
right,
you. You jump off that road whenever you want to, but you still recovering. You know, like I'm still recovering. I'm a recovering. I tell people I'm a recovering drug dealer. You know, it's always something, and it's always gonna be somebody addicted to something, and it's
right.
always a way to get drugs or get something to sell to people.
You
So
could
it's like,
and you could always slip back into that life if you're not staying steadfast and diligent and doing the right thing and keeping on your job and spreading the message to help other people. That's how I stay sober, is by sharing recovery with other people, just like the
right,
way you stay out of prison is by sharing with other people about how you're staying out of prison. You know what I mean?
and it's information too. You got to be careful with the information that you take in. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
right about now, I don't even know the prices of drugs. I don't know who's doing drugs. I don't know where to get drugs, but I don't arm myself with that information either.
Right.
That's it's the chess move. It's chess, not checkers. So I stay out of that whole, that lifestyle, so that it's, even if it was like, if somebody came and just said, "Hey, here go 100 kilos of cocaine," I'd be like, "Well, take it back. Give me the money if you want to help me out. Give me the money. I can make the money into some more money, but I can't do
Yeah.
nothing with the drugs. I don't know who to give them to, who to sell them to, how much they cost, how much they weigh, none of that." So same thing I would imagine being with uh, addiction, as far as using drugs. For one, the first thing you got to do is separate yourself from people doing things that you don't want to do.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Regardless, like you say, regardless of what it is. Porn, if you got a buddy who's always, he has a porn collection, he knows all the different sites to check out porn, you got
Yeah.
to cut them off. You got to cut them off until you get strong. Prostitution, I know a lot of people that's into that.
Yeah.
You got to cut yourself off. You got to cut yourself from all the things that you want to be away from. You got to cut yourself off to the things that either put you there or lead you to there. You know what I mean? If going on this side of the town is going to lead you to venturing over to these houses and doing God knows what, you got to stay away from that side of town. If talking
Right.
to this guy is going to lead you to, the conversation, or a female, the conversation, what she like to do or what he like to do, is going to lead you, you got to cut it off. And that's how you start the path to recovery, because you can't, it's hard. Some people go cold turkey, but it's hard. It's hard because it's deeper than just people, like we talked about, the lifestyle was fascinating and stuff like that. Back in the days, I want to say this was late 80s, I bought a camcorder, and I had this house where I was selling my drugs out of, and I did this, like, I guess I was ahead of my time, but I did like a documentary. Like, I was giving
Uh-huh.
the people that was smoking, I was giving them bags. I said, I will give you these bags if you sit down and tell me your story. So I don't even know what happened to the tape, but
Damn.
I had
That
a,
would be so cool
I
if you
know,
had
I know,
those.
yeah, and what I got, like one guy, he told me he started off back in the days when they used to sip Robitussin, which now everybody's sipping lean, cough syrup, and
Uh-huh.
stuff like that, promethazine. But he said he started off drinking cough syrup, then he started smoking weed, and then he went from the weed to, oh, that's somebody else. But yeah, he went to the weed, and then
Sorry. Is that
yeah,
you?
and then
Okay.
he graduated, basically graduated to smoking crack.
Right,
Long
right.
story short. So he told me his story, and it was just, I think I got like about 4 or 5 people to tell me their stories, and I filmed it and stuff like that. But that was back in the days when everybody was like, "Man, I don't feel comfortable in front of," now everybody just do, people doing murders in front of the camera. But that was, like I said, this was like late 80s, early 90s.
Right.
Yeah, and I remember doing that, just asking people their story, because I was like, I look back on that type of stuff now, like, man, if I would have just pursued that, I'd probably be, super rich just from doing that. But
You
yeah,
know, every person that I've had on my channel that has a story that has to do with addiction or going to prison, most of the people that I interview, they had some kind of trauma, some kind of situation where their life changed drastically. Maybe it was someone passed away, or they were molested or physically abused as a child, or there's just so many different stories that I've heard people tell. One guy I had on my channel, he was kidnapped when he was like 5 years old. Um, and so it's like a lot of the people that I found that use drugs, it's like a lot of them have struggled with trauma, PTSD, some kind of mental health or illness, and they start self-medicating uh, to treat that illness instead of seeking help for it, going to the doctor.
right. And see, that's the beauty of our channels too, because people now can see a visual. They can see you and me who've been through that and look like them or have stories similar to them, or we might have been even worse than them. And they can say, well, man, look at this person, and they're sharing their story. And that brings light to the situation. And that's what I was saying. You're the ideal candidate for somebody to teach because, like, I joined the mentoring program here in the little state for the youth that's going bad, just because I know I can identify with them. I know what attracts person to the gangs and the street life. I
That's
know
really
what.
cool, man.
Yeah,
I need to do something like that here where I live. I live in Arkansas, and
everybody know about banging in Little Rock.
yeah, yeah.
You know
And
what
listen,
I'm
I
saying?
used to hang out down there on 12th Street all the time when I was in my addiction, and I'm so grateful that I didn't get killed or something because it was bad. Towards the end of my addiction, I was wandering down the streets in boxers and t-shirts without no shoes on. I mean, you would never even know when it was me. Like I was probably like 110 pounds, all sunk in with black circles under my eyes. Um, and everybody knew me. Everybody knew me because I was just so fucked up all the time. It was sad, man. But when I first moved here to Little Rock, I was like, I was scared. I thought because I came from a small town in Arkansas,
Right.
and when I came here, I was scared and all this stuff. But then I started getting on drugs again, and it's like drugs. When you're on drugs, you ain't got no fear. I wasn't afraid of nobody.
Right.
I could have been kicking it with killers and murderers, and I didn't give a damn. Um, but I've never had any problems here. There's a lot of crime here, but I stick to myself. I mind my own business, and it's all good.
And not only that, tell me if this is true. You can see things that other people can't see.
Oh, I can tell, like, because I've been there. Like, I can see
Right.
somebody. I can see somebody when they're high. When I'm driving through the parking lot and I see a dude serving somebody or going to their. Me and my husband see it all the time. We're like, oh, look at those people. They're that dude's giving them drugs. That dude's shooting up in his car. That dude's doing this, and we're just like, and I know normal people have no idea what's going on.
Right.
They have no clue, but yeah, for sure.
It makes you reflect too. Like, did I do stuff that stupid? Like,
Dude, I
like
have
you said.
flashbacks
And
when I'm driving down certain parts of town. I'm like, I cannot even believe it. I've jumped. Oh Lord, help me, Jesus. I have done some of the stupidest stuff that I probably should be dead. You know, and I think back to that time, and I'm just like, there's got to be some power greater than us out there. There's got to be a God because there's no way that I should be here and not dead.
right. And you got to reach that bottom. Everybody's bottom is different. But even you look back, I look back into what we thought was our lowest point. It's people that's looking up at us at that point. You know what I mean? And it's
Yeah.
like my wife, she's a social worker. So she's white. So I like she says I'm super paranoid and I suffer from PTSD. And it might be true because I'm real big on locking the doors. I'm real
Well, you
big on
should
that.
be.
Yeah, but she's like, oh, you just paranoid and you don't have to worry, you're not in that life no more. But I've seen it, the things that I've seen. I like to prepare and just, be on the lookout because like like you said, you could be driving through a parking lot and you'll see a deal going down, or you know what I mean, something. And she'd just be like, I'd be like, did you see that? She'd be like,
In
what?
her own little world.
Yeah. I'd be
Yeah.
like, you don't see that? Like, it's like just things that catch your eyes. You just be like, wow, I can't believe it. Or sometimes, like, I see people and they be talking fast and moving. I'll be like, man, this person high as hell.
Yep.
And she
I
be like,
do.
wow. Yeah.
that that's the hardest thing for me, to see people like that, because I want to go up to them, and sometimes I do. When I see somebody that's on the side of the road and they're fucked up and they're high, a lot of times I'll pull over. Let me tell you a story real quick. Last year I was driving down the road. Me and my boy looked over to the right, my son, and there was a guy sitting on the bus bench with his hands in his face, rocking back and forth. And I said, man, that guy just looks so sad. I'm pulling over. So I pulled over. I locked my son in the car and I walked over to talk to this guy. And he looked up and he was high on heroin and he was crying. And I said, hey, man, are you all right? My name's Nicole. And he looked at me. He said, Nicole DeMeo. That was my maiden name when I lived in Hot Springs. And I said, yeah. And he goes, it's me, Ian. This guy I went to high school with from kindergarten to 12th grade. So
Wow.
right then I was like, I'm going to get you some help. So I took his number down. I got home. I came on my channel. We raised up some money for him and we got him into a halfway house to pay his first month rent. But like now, after that happened, it was like it was a miracle. I felt like God had placed me in that situation. And so every chance I get to talk to somebody that I see that's under the influence, if we're at the gas station, they're standing outside by the gas pumps, I'm telling them, like, I used to be just like you. You can get sober. You can make a change. You don't have to live your life like this anymore. It's really important to me because I don't think enough people stop and talk to people that are out there like that.
Right. And
There's nothing to be afraid of. I'm not afraid of nobody out like
right.
that.
And
There's no reason to be.
I tell people all the time, I'm not just talking to you, I'm talking to myself.
Oh,
Because when
yeah.
I hear myself, like even with the mentoring thing, and I'm telling them stuff about what trouble leads you to and all that type of stuff, I'm constantly reminding myself of the same thing. And it's like I know people are like retaliatory. You know what I mean? It's like if I'm constantly watching you, like, hey Nicole, you shouldn't be doing this. Hey Nicole, you shouldn't be doing that. Hey
Oh
Nicole,
my
you need
God.
to do
This
this.
freaking Wi-Fi.
Yeah. But it's gonna make you do the same thing to me. So a lot of times you gotta put that type of stuff out just so you have those people out there to watch you, and they don't even know they watching you because they just trying to catch you doing something wrong. But you put that out there, so now you got people out there watching your back and keeping you on the right path. That's just a little trick that I use for myself. She having Wi-Fi issues, but yeah, I can't really see the comments. Let me see. Can I see them? Oh, I can. A addiction. We eat every day. That's an addiction, right? I wouldn't say that eating is a addiction. Eating is more of a necessity. I wouldn't say that a necessity is an addiction. Yeah, she froze up again. Oh, okay. Thanks, Kathleen. Let me try to read through some of the comments right quick. Cut a tree down to make a hose, you go to jail. A trade only going for the city. Take that.
I'm just going to let you take over the show.
Oh, so I mean, I had to keep the people entertained. You know what I mean?
No, you're good. You're doing good. Every
Yeah,
now and then
I didn't even know I could read the comments. I just read.
oh yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
one guy said that GD was saying that uh, eating is an addiction. Eating is not an addiction. Eating is a necessity. You know,
Well,
but
you
food
can be
can be
addicted
an
to
addiction.
food. Have you seen me yet? I'm a big soul sister over here.
But it's just it's so many addictions that we have. Some of them we realize, some of them we don't. You know what I mean? It's like the addiction to money. You know what I mean? And the addiction to helping people. Helping people can be an addiction. You know what I mean? And some
Right.
addictions could be good, some could be bad. Some people have addiction to working. You know
For
what I mean?
sure.
I've seen people at work that just can't stop working. They taking all the overtime, not even realizing that they jeopardizing their family. They missing out on a lot of stuff. And it's just like life can be simple, but you can make it hard because when you sit back and realize and look at things, sometimes you can. I'm pretty sure you did this in prison, but you can overanalyze a lot of situations.
Oh yeah.
It's,
I
I
thought
mean,
about
even
my charges over and over again and how I could have done things differently if only I wasn't
right,
here in this situation at this time,
yeah,
you know.
and you just wasting really time because that situation is over. And you got to deal with the present and prepare for the future.
Right.
So
Hey,
it's a,
Leonard wants, are you still in Chicago right now?
no, I'm in Minnesota.
Minnesota, because there's this guy, he's like really cool. I'll send you a link to his channel. His name is Leonard, and his channel is called Her Opiate Fix, but he lives in Chicago. And so he popped in whenever he first came on, and he's been in here ever since. And he said that you got to meet him. You'll love him. He's probably one of the coolest people I've met on YouTube.
Okay, what is this channel about?
He's a recovering heroin addict. He also did time in prison, and so he talks about addiction and his experience getting locked up, and he's real cool. I'll send you a link to his channel for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I got a story too about heroin. Like uh me and my buddy, because back like I said, back in the late 80s, early 90s,
Mm-hmm.
heroin, the difference between cocaine and heroin was you made way more money off of heroin because the heroin was so strong you had to cut it down. In the process of cutting it down, you make more, so therefore you making money. It was literally people on the west side of Chicago who would make $1 million a day. I mean, that might sound crazy, but I mean, it was. I mean, that wasn't like everybody, but damn near a lot of them. A lot of those heroin lines would make
Uh,
hundreds of thousands a day. So anyway, so we ventured off. We on the south side, and heroin. Most of the people that use heroin would go to the west side to buy heroin. Even the west side of Chicago, people from Milwaukee that I met in jail, they used to go to Chicago, the west side, crowd every day because heroin is a necessity, whereas I would say crack is more of a want. It's more of a wanted addiction. And I
yes.
know it's a difference between the two addicts too, whereas people who was smoking crack, they would come and they would joke and they would laugh, but heroin addicts was serious. They were like,
That's because they have to have it to
right, right.
function. Their
So,
body is dependent upon
so,
it.
so listen to the story. So we want to start venturing over. We want to sell heroin too. So I'm gonna say we sold it for about 3 weeks. So I noticed because you got to put it in the blender and blend it. I'm not gonna give the recipe or whatever, but look, you in preparing heroin, cutting it and all that type of stuff. Like I remember taking when you're taking it off the coffee ground, it'd be like almost like a baby powder like mist, real dry
Uh-huh.
in the air. And then the guy who was showing us, he used heroin. He was showing us how to mix it and stuff like that, put the different stuff on it. And man, like we found out how to do it. So we started mixing it ourselves. And it was like I used to have these real bad stomach cramps. And I mean, like my stomach would be cramping, like hurting. And I was like, damn. And I remember telling him, like, man, my stomach be hurting. And he was like, do your stomach hurt while you mixing it? And I was like, I don't know. He's like, next time you mixing it, whipping it up, let me know if your stomach hurt while you using it. And then, my stomach didn't hurt. And he was like, oh, you got to mix and what they call a mixing habit. So basically what it was, like even the handling of it, it goes in your pores. And you become addicted and your body craves it, not to the point where you sniffing it or smoking it or shooting it, whatever, but you still haven't had it. And then when he said it was, I'm like a mixing habit, a heroin, I'm like,
So it
stop,
had to
stop
been
telling
going
me.
up when into your it had to be going up into your nose or something, you
And
know?
it's in the air, it's
Air.
going through your
Yeah.
pores because we wasn't wearing gloves and stuff like that. I even used to take a t-shirt and tie it around my face, but man, when he said it was a mixing habit, I was like, oh no. Because see, that was a different thing too, going back to the gang. See, like you wasn't allowed to use, I mean, even though people did it, you wasn't allowed to use drugs. And then like my parents, my mother and father smoked cigarettes. My father smoked weed since I can remember. But
Uh-huh.
I wasn't around the heavy drugs, so I kind of like had a fear of getting addicted. And I remember back, uh, maybe like toward going to a high school, the big thing was, using heroin, you know, uh, would give you a erection, make you hard.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, so I've seen a lot of dudes. Well, I'm not gonna say a lot. I've seen some dudes get hooked on it like that because they heard that, like now, people use Viagra and all that type of stuff. But back then they was using heroin, so they can just, be the
Because it
super
would give you dope dick and you could have sex
dope
like
dick.
all
Yeah,
night.
I didn't want to say it. I didn't know. But yeah, the dope dick. So they dick a girl down and she be all sprung. But
Yeah.
then eventually you don't even want a girl. You just want more heroin. You
Oh,
know what I
listen,
mean?
heroin is no joke. Like you can't just fuck around with it a couple times and not expect to have a
Wow,
habit,
yeah.
you know?
And
It's
then
just
the thing about tell you, I don't know, it's like people start smoking primos. Some people
uh-huh.
will sprinkle the powder cocaine on weed, and some people will crunch up the crack rocks and put it on weed. But like we go to the park and people smoke that. Man, I smell that. I used to call it a primo headache. I would have a headache and it would last for 24 hours. Like I couldn't go home and sleep it off or nothing. But whenever I smelled that smell, it gave me a 24-hour headache. And then
You
like,
seem like you were probably real sensitive to substances. Like
yeah,
if you had ever got on drugs, it probably would have been a bad deal for you. Like
yeah.
for
I,
real. You
I
know what I
can't even
mean?
breathe around cigarette smoke.
Yeah.
Like
Cuz
people in prison, when they used to come in and they had the smoke smell on their coat, I would know because I used to always tell them anytime I notice that I'm breathing, breathing is like something you just do. But when I
yeah.
feel myself going, I'm like, man, somebody got smoke on their jacket. And it's just like when I used to smoke weed. Like I remember I used to smoke joints because like I said, I grew up, my father was smoking joints. I smoked a blunt, like in the blunt tobacco, man, I smoked a blunt and I was high for 2 days. Like literally.
Yeah, you don't need to be doing nothing.
I woke up the next day and I was still high. And I was like, wow.
Man, you sound like my sister. The first time I ever got my sister high on a pot, I had to take her home and she was like 16 and I made her eat like 6 pieces of pizza and drink some chocolate milk trying to get her to come down.
Yeah. And it's like, back in the days, like I wouldn't even come out to serve nobody. Like if I like sit in the house and I might, and this is how I used to smoke weed. I would take maybe 2 or 3 pulls off a joint and then I put it out and I'm good.
Save it for later.
But I'm saying I was high. I was high enough. Like I was
Yeah.
super high. So I was like, people would call me. I wouldn't even come out. I'd be like, oh man, my car is messed up. I'm come tomorrow or whatever. But I'd be so paranoid. You know what I mean? But
Mhm.
well, I never understood how people could just smoke blunt after blunt after blunt. It's like how high is like, how high you trying to get, but
So high that I can't stand up.
for me, that was like like drinking. I never like people. I don't understand people would be like, oh, this beer to me, all beer tastes the same, nasty.
Mhm.
Like, and
Because
like
when you have that addiction inside of you, it's like the whole it's like you drink or you smoke or you pop pills or you snort or whatever you're doing till you lose control. It's like and you sound like you're the kind of person who doesn't want to lose that control. You like to be in you
right,
like to
yeah,
know that you're going to be okay. When you're an addict, you're looking to go over the edge.
that's
Like every
crazy.
time I did dope, every time I shot dope, I was like wanting to do the shot that was going to send me to the moon. You know what I mean? Like that was
Right.
my I was trying to go into space.
And see, that's what I'm saying. It's the same because I was always that type of drug dealer. And this is crazy. This sounds crazy. I'm pretty sure you have some crazy thoughts too. But I used to always say, when they come raid me, I want to be on the news. Like when people used to always come out the house and they be trying to hide from the camera. I used to always
Yeah.
say, I'm gonna look up and talk to the camera.
You're gonna be like, yeah, it's me.
Yeah, because
Man,
I was
I
like,
had crazy thoughts in my mind. Like I
I always
thought,
wanted to be that super duper, like, when they come and raid and they found all these drugs and people be like, oh my God, he had million. I always wanted to be that I guess, like you said, want to take you to the moon. I always wanted that take me to the moon type of amount of drugs, and it's like,
Right.
and then when they did raid, I was so scared, like, man, I hope the news not out. Like, man, I don't want to be on the news.
The next time you come on my channel, because I want to have you back for a second interview, I want you to talk about, because we've almost been on here. We've been on here for an hour and 30 minutes, so I don't want
Yeah,
to make it
too.
too long. But I want you to come back and talk to us about like what happened and how, like what happened when you got in trouble, and
Oh
you know what I'm
yeah,
saying. So what I'm gonna do now is everybody's gonna go over and subscribe to your channel,
yeah. I see
and
that. I appreciate y'all.
I'm gonna upload this video, but I need you to send me a picture so that way I can make a thumbnail, okay?
Okay, I got you.
And I had a good time, man. I really did. Thanks for
Oh
coming
yeah,
on.
it's
Like
nice
you're real
talking to
easy
you.
to talk to.
Yeah.
We had a good
Hey,
chemistry.
before we leave, I just want to say to all the people out there, because I know this is a recovery channel. Like I said before, the moment you stop using drugs, from the time you put that blunt out, you on your recovery path. It's up to you how long you stay on it. You know what I mean? If
Yeah.
you really want to just really, man, it's so much. We like an elite people. People, it's one thing about it, right? Nobody cares about nothing that's not worth nothing. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if you out there and they talking about you because you getting high, or they saying you're a bad mom or a bad dad, guess what? They don't talk about people that's not nothing. So they talking about you because you really are something. So you got to look in that mirror and say, man, what am I? Because I'm not just a junkie, a drug addict. Hey, when I don't got money, I make it happen and I go get my drugs. When I don't, it's something that you do that you just not seeing. You got to look within yourself and make it happen, man. And I want to lead the people with that, because
That's
a lot
right,
of people
man.
just don't know. They don't hear it enough. You know what I'm saying? And they get caught up in the sway of society. And I say this all the time, coming from where a lot of us come from, we see and we emulate what we see. We don't see a lot of people that's CEOs and owners of businesses and stuff like that. But then think about how many times you went to a store with a simple problem and you talk to the manager or the CEO or whatever, and it's a complete idiot, a
Right.
complete dummy. He just grew up in the right side of town, not necessarily the right side of town, but in under certain circumstances that put him in a place or put her in a place. But really, they just an idiot. They might have went to this school and that school, but they got passed along because of money or because that's the way they do things.
Right.
I think that you know less of a person than them, man, because there's a lot of idiots in high places.
Hell
And
yeah.
yeah, yeah, it is.
Like
And a lot of
seriously,
times,
I am so glad that you came on the channel because I, even though like I wasn't ever selling drugs or anything like that, like I can really relate to what you've been through because I was in that same world for so long.
right?
And so a lot of people, we have a lot in common even though we were on separate ends of the spectrum, we were together at the same time.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
anyway, I love you, man. I'm going to let you
All right,
go
love you
and
too.
I'll upload this. Send me a picture of you, okay?
I got you.
All right. Y'all go subscribe to his channel or else I'll kick your ass.
All right, peace.
What, buddy? Dude, I know y'all liked him. He was fucking cool as hell, huh? That was a good interview. It's not every day that I get, like, I feel like we're having a good conversation and stuff. That was really good. I really enjoyed that. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I'm going to upload this video and feed Nate some dinner. Please go subscribe to Successful Convicts, man. He's a real good dude, y'all. He's helping people, making changes, and he's changed and turned his whole life around. I have a lot of respect for him. So I hope you guys enjoyed the little chit chat session we had. I love you guys. And tomorrow night at 8 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time, I will be on Sober James's channel. And then Tuesday night, I've got Michael coming on. And then Thursday night, I have Kyle from Sober Dogs coming on. So we got lots of content coming y'all's way. I hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you guys later. See ya. Do you hear Nate back here? Dogs can't be sober. Nate, it's not an animal, but it's just